Hey everyone, Ace here, and I'm thrilled to share the very first episode of Friends You Haven't Met. For this one, I sat with San Diego artist Orion Song, and we had a great conversation about his musical career, attachment styles, relationships with our parents, and a whole lot more. So real quick, I met Orion last fall when I booked him for a benefit concert I was producing, and I was so impressed by, obviously not just his performance and his music, but just his authenticity and his kindness as a person. So much so that literally just after meeting him that day, the morning of the show, I knew I wanted to know more about his music and his story. So I'm really excited to share this one with you all. Special shout out to the Laboratory for letting us use their studio for this recording. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoy. I think we are good to start. Yeah? Okay, cool. Orion Song, welcome to Friends You Haven't Met. How you doing, bud?
Good, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. I feel like I'm on a freaking talk show right now.
Oh, you are right now. There's a live audience of one right now.
The whole couch setup and everything. It's pretty
trippy.
trippy.
Yeah. I mean, this isn't my usual setup. Shout out before we get started. Shout out to the Laboratory team, Laboratory Creative Studio. We're here in their studio right now. Shout out Angelina for letting us use the space. This will be by far my best looking episode. From here, I go back into my living room, and it's just nice. Me in my living room.
It's super nice.
I haven't seen you in a minute. How was the Sarah Kang show?
Oh, yeah, that was cool. I love going to New York, so if I have an excuse to just fly to New York and do something professional and write off that fun work trip, I take advantage and I just go for it.
Have you been to New York before?
So I've gone 3 times now.
Wow.
The first time was back in 2014. It was a graduation gift for my family.
Okay.
And now I'm going out there just to sing and do fun stuff and eat and just kind of indulge a little bit.
Yeah.
And I love it. I love New York.
And you were there to open for Sarah?
No. I was just a guest artist. So I just came on stage for a song sort of deal.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even a song that we did together. It was summer after senior year, more of a early 2000s rock punk emo kind of song.
Okay.
So it was really fun. I was out of my element, but I love being out of my element.
That sounds like a lot of fun. I've heard New York is probably one of the last U.S. cities that I haven't gone to.
What?
Yeah, I feel like I've hit Austin and Portland and kind of everywhere else that I want to go to in the U.S. New York is one of the last ones on the list. Is it as I've heard amazing things about it.
Dude, I suggest going with friends. Maybe the more friends, the better, in my opinion.
Okay.
I feel like you could have fun with your partner or just one other person, but if you go with a squad, it's always a good time. You don't have to drive anywhere, so taking the subway and public transportation is always more convenient, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Especially being a Cali guy, we don't have that blessing of subways and
public transit.
Yeah.
Public transit is just awful here.
It's not convenient.
Is it as vast? I've heard it's just so big. The city.
It's big. It's literally small.
Yeah.
If we're talking literal the radius and how big the city is, but it is pretty big. It's just like the movies. That's the best way I could describe it.
Okay.
Yeah, the city is a huge concrete jungle.
So you're born and raised in San Diego, but you frequently traveled to Oahu growing up. Do you have family there? Or?
So, yeah, my mom lives out there. My mom, my grandma, my brother, and a few more relatives, my uncles. And I would go out there at least once a year, but then that moved up to twice a year ever since I was 10 or 11, I'd say. And I'd spend a lot of time out there just... I've done all the touristy things years ago, so long ago, and now every time I go out there, I'm just hanging out, seeing my family.
Yeah.
Really just disconnecting. And it does feel like I hate to be, have the tourist mindset and say I'm on vacation, but I do feel like I'm taking a break to kind of just reflect and whatnot. When I'm out there, I'm not really kind of doing the whole beach thing and whatnot. I'm sort of just maybe sitting on the beach. Maybe just reflecting, walking, doing some hikes and stuff, but never really going to North Shore or I don't know what else.
Waikiki.
Especially Waikiki.
Diamond Head,
I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good on that.
I lived in Oahu for a few years. I don't know if you know that.
Oh, you know what? You told me that.
Yeah. I lived there for 3 years. So my dad was in the military. So I was also born here.
Okay.
But when I was 7, I moved to Japan. And then I lived there for 6 years. And then when I was 13, I moved to Hawaii. And then I was there from 13 to 16. And then I came back came back
Gotcha.
here. So familiar with the spot. I haven't been back. Jeez, it's been a long time.
It's probably different.
I think I haven't been back since I left.
Mm.
Yeah, I would totally remember that. Yeah, so I left in 2008, which was 16 years. Oh my God, I don't even want to say that. It was 16 years ago.
Yeah. It's probably way different from
Yeah,
now, for sure.
yeah. So, as someone that's moved around, like to me, I associate the different places I've been with very specific like sentiments and memories. Like to me, when I think Japan, I was like an adolescent and a preteen. When I think Hawaii, I was like, oh, I was growing into a teenager. So that's what I relate those places with. Do you have like a similar connection between San Diego and Oahu? Are they that distinct to you where like Oahu to you is where you recharge and reflect and San Diego is more like the busy lifestyle?
Yeah, I would definitely say so. You know how being I know we're both Filipino, right?
Yeah.
We have, so I'm half, but you know how they say like when you go back to the Philippines, you're going back to the motherland sort of thing.
Right.
With my mom's side, unfortunately, I'm like 5th gen Korean American. I'm not too in touch with my Korean side, but I felt like my motherland on my mom's side was Hawaii. Even though like I can't claim to be Hawaiian, I'm not Hawaiian blood or anything like that. But every time I go out there, I feel like I'm reconnecting with family and kind of just I for some reason I just feel that there is a lineage that I'm like connecting with when I go out there.
Yeah.
Literally, my great grandparents moved from Korea there.
Okay.
So maybe that's where it comes to play.
Do you consider one of them to be home more than the other?
San Diego or
Hawaii?
Oh,
yeah, Oahu.
I definitely San Diego.
Okay.
It's hard to say. But I can't. I gotta let go of this like productive anxiety that I have.
Oh.
Because if I'm out there, I'm like, I need to get back to work now. You know what I mean?
Our whole generation
Exactly.
has that productive anxiety.
If I can get rid of that, then maybe I could, connect with the land on a deeper level. But for now, I am definitely San Diegan. I love burritos and smoothies so much.
Love it. So I want to talk about music a little bit. So you've been making music since you were 12 years old, and your first release, I think 2020?
Technically, it was 2017.
2017, okay.
Can't find it anymore. It's not on Spotify.
But 2020 is what, the first album? First EP or something?
Yeah, the first, like, hi, my name is Orion Song, I'm an artist.
Oh, okay,
sort of thing.
yeah.
So 2020 was the first single. Then 2 months later, I released my first album.
I see. Yeah. Cool. Did you always know that you wanted to be like a musician, performing artist, or was that a gradual decision?
It was always there, I think. I always wanted to do music because growing up, like playing different sports and doing different things creatively or athletic, I only gravitated towards music and martial arts, which is kind of random. Right. But during 2020, I had gotten out of I was going through a cycle.
Okay.
It's embarrassing to say. I'm not that embarrassed because I've grown past it, but I was going through a ton of toxic relationships.
Okay.
And when I finally got out of my last toxic relationship, I was like, I'm doing music all the way. And I did. And I have never stopped ever since then.
Walk me through the journey. So you're 12 years old. Mm-hmm. What got you started? And, what were the milestones from then to now?
So 12 years old. Well, maybe we'll go back even further. I mean, when I was 3 years old, I remember singing in the car obnoxiously, singing NSYNC and stuff.
Yep.
And listened to a lot of Usher, a lot of neo soul. My mom went through a huge R&B phase in my early childhood, so that was always prominent. And I knew that I liked to sing, but I didn't really get educated and take an orchestra class or anything like that until 7th grade.
Okay.
And that's when I was 12. So I started learning how to read music. I played drums for a long time, from middle school through high school. And then I took choir classes, and then I really started to learn how to sing with technique and whatnot.
From your diaphragm.
Yes. But I've been songwriting ever since middle school. Ever since I had my first crush or something like that.
Right,
I started songwriting. After high school, I kept my skill set with percussion and being a drummer, and thought that let me just hone in on these skills that I've been developing for a while. And I toured with a few reggae bands in San Diego. It was really fun, but eventually I stopped doing the drumming thing. It just wasn't for me. I never felt like I excelled so much, and also I just didn't enjoy it as much as singing.
Yeah,
I liked it. It's something I could do, and I do it like purely just for fun, like very lighthearted perspective with drumming. But with singing and songwriting, that was just like, that was my identity.
Right, because it's like expression, right?
Correct.
I mean, I think there's like a limit to how much most people can express themselves musically just on drums.
Yeah,
compared to
sure.
songwriting. Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure other musicians and instrumentalists would argue and say like, no, like I am born to be a drummer or something like that. But that just wasn't for me. So
yeah.
The singer-songwriter route started off in maybe like 2016, 2017.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's been a journey.
Yeah, it's fun though. It's so fun. It's a scary life just being an artist, but it's super fulfilling.
So you mentioned that you come from a Filipino background. As another Filipino person in a creative field, or like let's just say like a non-STEM field. Getting my parents' validation throughout my career was a whole journey, and in a lot of ways I'm still on that journey. Like I think they don't fully understand what I do, and it took a long time for me to even get comfortable talking to them about like, I plan events or I make videos professionally. So I'm curious what your parents think about you pursuing a musical journey. Is there a validation dynamic as well, or is it different?
So fortunately, my mom is super supportive and also very creative. Like she was a pianist and like a songwriter like my whole life. So that heavily influenced me. And my dad, he's been a DJ since he was 16.
Okay.
So
They get it.
Yeah. They totally understand. But my dad was a little more nervous for me because he had to go through the struggles of like an entrepreneur, artist, musician. And he never told me I couldn't do it, but he would consistently be like you got to be all about it. Like are you sure you want to do this? Are you sure? He would always like just check me. Yeah, I've had that support. I can't talk. I've had that support forever. However, I think the Asian parent pressure kind of applies when I'm hanging out with like my friends and their families. Yeah. So going to their family parties, like, what do you do? Yeah. I'm like, oh, I'm a musician, auntie. I I just go to these bars and I sing.
Yeah. Next thing you know, they're putting you on karaoke because they want to see a sample.
Yeah. Sometimes they're like really impressed, but sometimes they're like, is that stable? Like, They like to kind of test me a little bit. So I think most artists have to deal with the Asian parent argument where they're kind of just worried about you and whatnot. I didn't have to deal with that with my parents, but being in an Asian community, my friends' parents for sure, their families, that's where like the pressure comes in sometimes. Wow,
that's almost unheard of.
Really?
Yeah, where like both parents are completely supportive. And your mom a former musician too. Yeah, and you're actually, I would say both of them former musicians.
Definitely.
Yeah, so they totally get it. Wow, I'm sure that helped a lot. So there are a lot of common themes in your music, many of which are about conveying love and relationships in a way that goes against like typical male portrayals of love, like perspectives of love. Do you find it difficult being vulnerable in that way for your music?
Not anymore, but I did in the beginning. Okay. My first single that you can't find anymore. It's on like SoundCloud and YouTube. It's called Infatuation.
Show us.
If you're super curious, go look it up. But you're gonna have
acapella right now. Come on.
Oh,
no
my
kidding.
But that song was like pretty surface level. Like this is what other R&B singers and rappers talk about and sing about. So I'll make a song like that too. Yeah. But after a while, you're like, I'm just doing what everyone likes. It's kind of not what I want to say.
Yeah, it's not, you're not expressing yourself,
what's the
right?
point of being a freaking artist, you know? So I thought, let's talk about what, like, I'm a man. I identify as a man. So what do men struggle with in love and relationships? And by default, I talk about love and relationships or songwrite about that because that's R&B. The basis of R&B tends to be a lot of that. And I really wanted to highlight more of a vulnerable, I wanted to make it my image, and that's what makes it easy. It's like I wanted to highlight what it takes to be like a sensitive man, or like a man that can find strength through emotional vulnerability. And giving that it's my image and like my mission, I think that's where the confidence comes to play. Wow.
I've been learning a lot about how much our parents' relationship with each other affect the way that like our expectations of relationships. your relationship or your parents' relationship, did that factor in at all? Like, was your dad an emotionally vulnerable person and that encouraged you to be, or was it,
I think
the opposite
so.
maybe?
Yeah, my dad. I'm grateful for my dad because he's not much of a he's not like a hard
You can say a bad word.
Yeah,
You can say hard ass.
yeah, he's not a hard ass, but he's very just a calm, normal, nice male.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I've always appreciated that. I've never had to deal with too much toxic masculinity. I feel like that influence came from my friends and hanging out with their families or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's it's unavoidable. It's just kind of rooted in our society today.
Yeah.
But it's just, I don't think I have it as bad as others, is what I can say.
So if you had to say, why do you think other men struggle with embracing that?
I think there's so much, I guess today, being that we're millennial Gen Z, I feel like Gen X had a lot of pressure, even more pressure to be a man, and kind of didn't have the right, I guess society wasn't as sensitive and as vulnerable at the time. I think it was more just about the hustle.
Right.
And I know there's kind of that awkwardness between baby boomers and Gen X, where baby boomers are really about the hustle. It was work till you die sort of thing.
Yeah. Oh, that was how my dad was.
Yeah.
When he first came to the US, that's what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think with Gen X, they were trying to figure out, okay, we don't have to be like that. So how do we do that? How do we progress as a generation? And being the first generation to do it, I don't think they fully transitioned into you don't have to work till you die. You can kind of work on yourself.
Right.
Versus just, worrying about the paycheck and rents and all these other really difficult financial problems that we have today. So now we're aware of it as millennials and Gen Z, and I feel like there's communities out there that are dedicated to men's mental health.
Yeah.
And what else is there? I think I've noticed in dating too.
Yeah.
And not a lot of men will agree with me, but I feel like if you can be more feminine, or if you can embrace your more feminine or just vulnerable qualities, then that's way more attractive than the hard ass.
Right.
Than
right.
the jock, than the freaking jarhead, or not jarhead, meathead.
Meathead.
Sorry,
Yeah.
wrong term.
Maybe jarhead too.
Yeah. Nah. Nothing against the military or anything like that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
No, I agree with you. I think I feel like my relationship with emotional vulnerability has had such extremes. I realized fairly recently that I'm a naturally emotional person. And I think people that may have known me for a long time might find that crazy, that I didn't even realize that I was very emotional.
Do you feel like you've been taken advantage of with that?
Not taken advantage of, but I think I was more emotional than I think my family realized and knew how to nurture.
Gotcha.
Because growing up, I felt in a lot of ways emotionally repressed. I didn't have support in the ways that I needed it. And again, these are all things that I'm realizing in retrospect. I've done a lot of reflection lately on how I've been brought up and everything. Yeah. And there are points in my life where say I moved, from Japan. Moving around growing up was really hard for me. And I found that how I coped with it was I think I learned to build confidence, just in isolation. So I think naturally I'm a confident person, but it comes from a place of having to move a lot. When I was I was 11 and 13 and 16, and just being put in a completely new environment, right? No friends. I have to learn to make friends. I just
Gotcha.
love socializing. So it's a nightmare scenario for me, moving like that.
It can force extrovertedness.
Yeah. And so this is maybe mid 2000s, and the heteronormative expectation of guys still then was don't talk about your feelings, just tough it out, trying to be a cool person, right? Be a cool guy.
Yeah.
So I think when I was a teenager, I developed an unhealthy ability to just repress emotions. I was very avoidant for a long time. I don't know if you're familiar with attachment styles.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, so I am naturally an anxious attached person.
Okay.
I think in my teenage years, I became super avoidant into college. And then probably in my late 20s and then up to now, I learned I learned to embrace the anxious attached parts of me.
Sure.
But it was all, geez, I'm giving you like a year's worth of growth and healing that I feel like I did,
thanks
like
for
in a
sharing.
nutshell.
I can kind of relate a little bit too.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
I switched up too. I think I was avoidant during like toxic relationships, and
Right.
then I was anxious in like healthy relationships.
Wow.
But I definitely, in the healthy relationships, I definitely like identified it and also found a way to embrace it too.
I've never related more. Like,
Yeah.
I think that's how I am too. I think in a healthy relationship and one that I genuinely feel affection for, I
Yeah.
become anxious.
Yeah, and it's almost harder to like work through it than
It
than
is
through avoidance.
because I feel like I've been vulnerable a lot lately for the good of a relationship, and it's just a new kind of, like, it's scary being that open.
Yeah.
Like, to other people, to yourself, to be that open, even though it's like a great thing, and I'm glad that I've gotten to a point where I can express myself in a healthy way and just talk about these things, like stuff that scare me or that are making me anxious. You know, it took a while to get there, but you know, I think it's miles ahead of where I was maybe a year ago, even, where I didn't even realize things about myself, like such as the way I attach to people,
Yeah.
or like my relationship with my parents. I mean, that was a big one too, my relationship with my parents.
It's also that shift from avoidant to anxious where you like feel like you're learning. You start to see yourself change. And you're like,
Yeah.
this is crazy.
Right.
Like, and you don't realize like mental health is like your mental health is being tested.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to like acknowledge the shifts, the just the pressure sometimes, and yeah, we all forget about that as a society, I think.
I'm so glad I can talk to you about attachment
Dude,
styles,
hell
because
yeah.
I went down a rabbit hole and it was so helpful for me. I was like listening to podcasts and just like, I was like, wow, it helps so much to put these these very common behaviors into categories, but like in a very helpful way. I was
Yeah.
like, okay, this makes me antagonize these things about myself less, like things that, man, Mike probably picked that up.
Gotcha.
But I was saying, like, it helps so much to just have the language to describe the way that you've behaved. Like,
Yeah.
even though like it's just the way I naturally have been, like just certain anxious tendencies, but to read about it and to read about, you know, how to grow from it, like the dynamic with like avoidant attached people, just so helpful. So I'm glad I can talk to you about this.
Likewise, because I mean, I feel like we don't have to go to a therapist all the time. I mean, I believe everyone should have a therapist, but they're not easily accessible too.
Yeah,
It's insurance and whatnot. It's not instilled in our community. Unfortunately.
Right, yeah.
So yeah, we need this.
Yeah. That's that. We're literally doing therapy right now. It's all.
Hell yeah.
I'm not even recording anything.
I'm all for it. This is great.
So I want to talk more about relationships. I know you got out of a long distance relationship recently, and you know, I know, you know, it must have been difficult. So I appreciate you being open about certain parts of these. But I guess my first question is, how are you doing today in regards to that?
Honestly, I'm doing great. Overall, I'm doing great. I think I had to really reflect. I'm forced to reflect for a while, you know, and kind of just take it easy so that I can take whatever pain or trauma that I feel is coming, sort of thing.
Yeah.
But it was a healthy, very good relationship, and because of that, it's more of a blessing, and I didn't have to like. I've only been through like bad breakups before,
Okay.
like really toxic. Like I ended all my relationships, sort of thing.
Okay.
This is the first one where it was like the other end, and I was like, oh, okay, I understand though. I totally get it, but I have never been in this situation before, so I don't know how I'm gonna cope, how to do this, but let me just go for it. And I've had a good support team, so like I've had like my family and my friends and whatnot, and through like my individual like healing and coping and reflection, I've just come to see that like everything is okay, like everything is good, and I'm very grateful for the breakup. I'm very grateful for like the people in my life and were in my life or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
It's overall I'm grateful, and as long as I'm grateful, I feel like I can be happy, and I say that in a non-toxic way.
That's
too.
good.
Yeah.
That's good. I am a strong believer that every relationship, there's lessons, right, from each relationship, right? There's so many things to grow from. And I think we deprive ourselves of that growth because most of us don't reflect on a breakup in a healthy way.
Yeah.
Like it's always in the moment, very emotional, a lot of anger and jealousy, whatever negative emotions. But have you learned anything from the experience that you're able to share, either about yourself or about, relationships as a whole?
If I really think about it, I'm just really happy of where I am now and how it came out to be, because again, it's just more of like this feeling of gratitude. Like, wow, I'm so happy that it was her and it wasn't like someone else or someone like abusive or something like really bad could have happened.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that it wasn't a different scenario where it could have been like crazy. And I guess like as someone that had some more anxious attachment tendencies, I had to really figure out how to like love myself again completely.
Yeah.
And like I really want that, you know what I mean? Like not just because like that's what you're supposed to do, but for my own mental health, it's like I really want to make sure I successfully like love myself to where I'm kind of just like impervious to any other weakness or tendency to just like rely on someone else to love me or something like that. So
damn, that's beautiful.
that's probably
For
one
real.
of the biggest things. Yeah. But you gotta have like I feel like it takes a lot of like willpower and like passion and like righteousness to want that too.
I agree. It's funny you're mentioning this because I'm working on like a separate video project that is literally about solitude. So I think that's something I developed probably in the last 18 months, year and a half, like 2 years. I also learned like finally to be alone in a healthy way. I didn't realize this was like a thing I struggled with.
Yeah.
I'm just very social. It's one of my strengths, but I think in my adulthood, I think I've just, been learning more about myself, and I've been on this journey of learning to have a very healthy relationship with solitude, like be able to be alone without feeling lonely type thing. And it's a scary thing, especially, you are like literally your work, you're constantly in front of people, right? You're constantly engaging with people. And I think a normal person day to day is engaging so much with other people that being alone is like, to most people, not very appealing. Yeah. Right. It's just like, why would I do that? It's like boring. It's quiet. Like nothing is happening, when it's like, well, there's a lot happening. Like you are a lot. Yeah. And I think it takes like really a shift in your head to understand that you are as interesting and as important a person that you would treat a partner. I feel like a lot of people don't get there.
No, I definitely agree. Yeah. Like there's so much to life aside from just reaching out to like other stimulation, other people. Like there's so much life within yourself to look at, and we always forget that. I forget that all the time. Right.
Yeah. So what key relationships in your life contributed to your view on love and relationships? Like what were the big important ones, the significant ones?
So aside from, let's see. So I've had my fair share of like toxic relationships. And I don't think I've made a lot of or written a lot of songs like out of spite or anything, because when that happens, the song is really bad. Usually it just sucks, and that's just from experience or having drafts and whatnot. But I feel like letting go of my toxic relationships just triggered this new like profound like happiness for me. And that was back in 2020 when I like literally. Okay, I'm just gonna say it. I don't even care anymore. But when I broke up with one of my exes, it was really bad, and I knew I had to do it, sort of thing, because it was toxic. I got out of that, and immediately my friends sent me an instrumental for my first single. Wow! Like it was just like meant to happen, sort of thing. So when that happened, timing. Like this is a sign. This instrumental is so dope. Yeah. And I wrote Electricity after that, and I remember like, wow, I'm so happy. Like it was more of a catalyst to writing a bunch of songs versus like I'm writing about them, sort of thing. So I've only had like it's hard to say that my songs are like specifically about like the person I was dating or seeing or whatever. Sometimes it's just inspired by them, but I like to keep that ambiguous. So.
Yeah, definitely. Don't do the do the Taylor Swift route where you're dropping names in the tracks.
No, we're not doing that. Hell no.
Yeah. Okay. So like sounds like letting go of your toxic relationships. That was one. That was a big one.
And just also in those relationships and I mean, to all my exes, like I hope you're all doing well. Like I don't hate you guys, but I really hope that y'all realize like y'all taught me a lot. I learned a lot through those experiences, and with that, I have so many different topics to write about.
Yeah.
And with my recent relationship too, and whatnot, I have even more beautiful things to say. To be honest, that's why again I'm just grateful. I'm always grateful with the pain, and it sounds kind of crazy. It sounds kind of masochist to say that, but
no, I mean I think I 100% do. I think it's if you take the word pain and replace it with like the memories, the stories, the lessons, then it becomes like not a negative thing, right?
Yeah.
Like nothing lasts forever. And in a traditional sense, you can end up with one person, and like everyone along the way shouldn't be a negative thing, right? It's part of the journey.
Yeah.
So I totally understand feeling gratitude for those things. I think that's how you find peace with your past relationships. Is
definitely
don't look at it as something that look at it as part of the story, right?
Yeah.
There's lessons to take away from it. I think if it stays a negative thing, short of it being like, abuse or something extreme like that.
Yeah.
If you still think of it as a negative thing, to me, I would challenge you to, look at your relationships. Like, have you learned from it?
Yeah,
like, did you really reflect and think like, what was your role in it? Like, what was the takeaway that you could have grown from?
Definitely. Like somewhere in that pain, there is love. Like there's always a balance to things. So yeah, I think,
shout out to our exes.
Yeah, shout out to my exes. I was about to say shout out to my exes. I love you all.
Whoa.
let me not say that. But I appreciate you all.
Yeah. So before we close it out, I want to turn it over to you. Shout out any projects, people. Just show love to the listeners.
Well, yeah. Thank you all for watching and for listening. This is actually my first podcast, like straight up. So I'm so happy to be here to be doing this. I want to do like 50 more of these. So this is my first time taking a break from releasing right now. I was releasing consistently for like 2 years now, and for February and March, I think I'm taking a break. Just gonna hone in on everything. I'm not taking a break from like doing music. I'm just taking a break from releasing. So lots of stuff coming. I think I have like 2 albums and 1 EP that I'm working on simultaneously right now. So lots of stuff. Just stay tuned. I'll just post some covers to keep y'all entertained for now. And yeah, thanks for being here.
All right. I think that's a wrap, dude. Yeah, we're done.
Hell yeah.
That's good.